Hi everyone, I'm Glory Ukwenga of Africana League Development Initiative. You're listening to Ombudsman Radio.
Hello everyone, wherever you're watching from, the program is Spark. Now you know what Spark is all about. By now you should know, and if you don't know, let me let you know. Spark is that program where we bring successful people who have been able to know what their light bulb moment is. What is that light bulb moment? That moment where something sparks in your brain and tells you, I have to be the best that I can be. Today we have nothing short of that, because believe me, the moment I heard about all of the caps this guest had won, I was bowled over. We'll meet him together. His name is Hon Abubakar Jijiwa. Good to have you on the show, MFR.
Thank you. Good to have you too. And good evening, good afternoon. Hello to our
Audience.
viewers, ladies, listeners, audience. Thank you very much.
Where do I start?
Did you say FAC or SPAC?
Spark?
Oh, SPAC. Okay.
Spark.
Oh.
You know when when you hear spark and then you just see a light bulb and it just goes.
I do hope that I'll be able to provide that spark.
I'm sure you will.
As we
Go along.
Yeah, sure.
Now tell us, Honorable. You have won so many caps in your lifetime.
Yes.
Could you tell us some of these caps that you've won specifically?
Well, talking about caps, let me say that my pedigree is somewhat scattered. Some people will say confused, but I think it's I've gone into broadcasting, I've gone into finance, accounting, I've gone into advertising, and I've also gone into tax practice, which is a segment of accounting actually. So you can pick, but the thing that really made me perhaps more popular is broadcasting.
Yeah.
Because and journalism generally, because even in journalism I've gone through print media, I've gone through broadcast media, I've gone through even news agency. I've worked in the news agency of Nigeria, so again I've gone through
So many
things in my lifetime. But let's say in broadcasting, although I started as a junior producer. In fact, when I started broadcasting, I was too young to be employed, so I was an artist because I was just finishing secondary school and I was just 16, going 17. So they could not employ me because the employment age was 18. But I did all sorts of things as a producer, artist, reading news, translating into some languages, doing drama.
As a young 16 to 17-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I now became mature to 18, I became employed as a junior producer. And shortly after that, I was enjoying it really, but I was pushed by my parents to go to university. So I left for university. And when I went to university, perhaps if there was mass communication, I would have read mass communication. But when they looked at my results and they saw I had an A in mathematics.
Wow.
So they assigned accounting to me. So I read accounting. But I maintained everything about journalism. During holidays, I'll come back to my state. By the way, I'm from Adamawa State. And when I started broadcasting, that state was called Gongola State. And it was fortuitous and God's plan that later, not very long after that, after I graduated, I came back to be the general manager of Gongola Broadcasting Corporation, Lola. I was just 28, so I was still a bit young. While I was general manager, some new states were created. And so we had Adamawa State and Taraba State. So the name Gongola dissolved into oblivion. So we became Adamawa State, and I became therefore the first general manager of the new Adamawa State.
Wow.
Actually, I was designated Director General, so I also became the first Director General of the Adamawa Broadcasting Corporation. But I had come from News Agency of Nigeria where I was working. So when I finished, I had 2 years in Gongola Broadcasting Corporation, 2 years in
Adamawa.
as Director General, and after that I left and went back to News Agency of Nigeria in Lagos. It was from News Agency of Nigeria I now joined Voice of Nigeria. And because of my finance background, I was employed as Director of Finance. Initially Finance and Supplies, later
That's in VON now.
in VON, Voice of Nigeria.
Yeah.
But I maintained my writings to newspapers, participating in talk shows and things like that, even as a general manager. Even when I travel abroad and I see something newsworthy, I'll capture it and send it to our newsroom in Voice of Nigeria. So ultimately, I
became the DG.
Became the DG.
Of VON.
Yes.
As Voice of Nigeria.
And I think my mixture of finance and management background probably influenced my appointment, because that post was advertised. And a firm of chartered accountants called KPMG, I'm sure you know them.
Yes, I do.
KPMG were the ones that are recruited to headhunt for the best
Possible candidates.
Yeah, so I also applied, and out of about 96 of us, I was picked as the DG, and I served two terms.
Wow.
So 10 years. So I had worked, the longest place I worked was actually in Western Nigeria, because I worked a total of 22 years. Out of that, 10 years as DG.
Yeah.
And I became DG at the age of 44 or 43. I retired at the age of 53. So, to the glory of God. But I had, like I mentioned, I had worked in print media also. I worked in New Nigeria, and I was a member of the editorial board for about 2 years. In fact, the first time I was still a dead human being was when I was in Nigeria, because I was assigned to go and cover the execution of armed robbers.
Wow.
So that gory and horrible sight, and you had to go and interview them while they were tied to the stakes, waiting for their death.
I hope it wasn't the famous Anini one.
No. Before then. It was a common thing in every state in those days.
In those days?
It was very common. Once there used to be in every state armed robbery and firearms tribunal, and all firearms people, armed robbery suspects were taken to that tribunal, and if they are found guilty, they are sentenced to death, and they are publicly executed. So me, that's what I will remember most in my career in Nigeria, because this was the first time I was seeing a human being alive.
And then the next moment, gone.
He was gone. And right before
that must
my
have
eyes.
been a sight.
Very, 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 very.
Even thinking about it.
Yes. And you are interviewing a human being that was alive, and then
a few minutes later,
he's
it's gone.
Yeah, so I've worked in Nigeria 2 years, or even 3 years. Also, and I maintain also a column, a page 3 column in New Nigeria, in Sunday New Nigeria, the Sunday edition. So that also made me a bit popular in the leadership of New Nigeria. So I think that is on the political scene. Along the line, I was also made Adamawa State Commissioner of Finance and Economic Planning and Budget during the military era. So I served there also for 4 years. From Western Nigeria, I went to Adamawa and served as in the cabinet for about 4 years, and we handed over in '99 to the democratically elected government there. So I think that is just what I should say. Since I'm living in Western Nigeria, I've been privileged also to serve as on the board of Nigerian Railway Corporation, and then now
The Honorable
Commissioner of Public Complaints Commission representing Adamawa State. From Adam, I never knew anything called Public Complaints Commission, but when I was contacted and I accepted, I said, well, I think this is the kind of, I will gel with this kind of appointment because it deals with
people
and their complaints, and especially ordinary people. I'm happy. Adamawa State is a kind of civil service state, so most of the complaints have to do with civil service, non-payment of gratuity, pensions, and things like that. Not too much of industrial issues. Even cases of husband and wife, we have treated them, So it's satisfying. It's actually satisfying.
Yes, you've had a career that has been rich with accomplishments.
Thank God.
Tell me, what inspired that? Did you know early on that you were going to go on to accomplish so many things, or did it just happen for you?
Let me be a bit modest.
Were you intentional?
Yeah, absolutely. Because for me, okay, let me just say this. I was born in a small town. It's now a town, maybe. In those days, it was a village. I mean, a village means a place where people go and fetch water from the well, go trek to school, barefooted, and so on. This is the kind of environment I grew up. So there's a lot of discipline. There's a lot of focus. Your parents taught you to do the right things all the time. And therefore, that gives you that background and foundation to do the right thing. Now, for me, any assignment given to me, I do it with so much zeal and passion and dedication. I told you that when I finished secondary school and I went to the radio house
you were
in
16,
Lola,
17?
Yes, and they saw my passion, my excitement, and they just immediately, and they were just putting me in a rival program, and I was happy to do that. So I was virtually paying for myself to go. They were giving me a small stipend, but it wasn't much. But the passion was there. So for me, any job given to me, I do it with a lot of dedication. I'm not saying I'm not the most hardworking person. There are people much more hardworking, much more intelligent, and much more even passionate than me. So at the end of it also will say, what is written shall come to pass. So we do our best and leave the rest to Almighty God.
But the main thing is that you were intentional about what you wanted to become in life.
Yes,
Even when at a young age, you didn't really know where it was. But you just put in your best
Absolutely.
to whatever you were doing.
Yes.
Now, you were DGVON,
Yes.
that's Voice of Nigeria,
Yes,
for,
yes.
you just mentioned, 10 years.
Yes.
Let me know, what were some of the major accomplishments that you achieved in that time?
West of Nigeria, was also gradually becoming a kind of backwater kind of organization. And I believe that we have been able to raise the name of West of Nigeria wherever you went to in those days and up to now. Everybody will say, oh, VON, because everybody knows what VON is. The biggest challenge of West of Nigeria was because West of Nigeria was supposed to broadcast to external audiences, not local audiences. People listen to in Nigeria, but the target and the law setting of West of Nigeria is for external audiences. That is why they broadcast in English, French, Swahili, Arabic, Hausa, English, Hausa, Fulfulde, Yoruba, now Igbo.
Yeah.
So even the Nigerian languages is targeted at the Nigerians in the diaspora. And I was I'm pleased to be the one of those one that with my management introduced those
Nigerian languages to the outside
world. Now, and we tried to even bring in Portuguese, Spanish, even Indian, Hindi language, and Chinese, Cantonese Chinese. But because of funding issues and so on, we were not able to succeed. If you are traveling we are going to the airport from in Abuja here. If you reach Lugbe, and if you just look up on the left-hand side of the road, you will see some very, very big towers, some very iconic
I've
towers.
seen them.
Yes,
I
yes.
have.
And you will think whether these are airport radar
Yeah,
equipment
yeah.
or what. To me, this is the epitome of my success in most of Nigeria.
You were able to mount those.
Mount an ultra modern, high power, super power transmitting station that can reach any part of the world
Wow.
from there.
Wow.
So, what has become of it after I left, I don't know, and I don't want to go
But
into
was during
into
it
that.
is written that it was
Yeah,
during your
yeah,
time
but-
those
but,
were done.
and this is the first in Africa. This is the first country in Nigeria that was able to do this kind of station. You know, a real digital superpower transmitting station that you can receive anywhere in the world.
Fantastic.
It had also what is called rotating antennas and fixed antennas. The fixed antennas are fixed to certain portions of the world, certain regions of the world. The rotating antennas are meant to
Pick
pick
everything.
those areas that the fixed antenna was not able to reach. So it could rotate in the morning to a particular region and rotate to another region in the evening.
all
and
parts
so-
of the world.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But my biggest joy in Western Nigeria, oh yes, these are physical infrastructural achievements. But for me, I think I left a legacy of the human family, human capacity development in Western Nigeria, camaraderie and fellowship and solidarity within the staff. If something happens to one, it happens to all. Whether you are in management or you are in you are just a very junior staff, everybody was concerned for the other person. And for me, the outpouring of felicitation and joy or sympathy or emotion, let me put it that way, emotion. At the time I was living in Nigeria, is something that I will forever cherish and remember. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, you have had a career in journalism for a very long time.
Yes.
How were you able to transition to politicking? Because you mentioned that you also served in the House. Or
No, I never served in the House, but I'm in politics.
okay.
Let me say that from the onset, I have always been political. From secondary school, I participated in political activities, debates, things like that. In the university, I was a very, very active activist, student activist. I was in almost every student union government throughout. And by the way, the student union government in those days is very different from the student union government of today, where students, you see them kowtowing to governments of the day. In our own days, we had a Marxist-Leninist kind of ideology that distrusted governments and never really believed in anything government, and therefore we were always on the other sides
Of the fence.
of the fence all the time. So that gave me a foundation to always be in politics. In my entire life, I tried to be very active in determining who became the chairman of my local government, who became the member of the House Assembly.
Really?
Yes. I don't want to say single-handedly, but I made sure we had a group in my local government area that decided who becomes what. And we tried to choose the very best person. I believe that very best person fails us, we change him. So I can say I'm a very, very active stakeholder in politics of Adamawa State. And because I retired at a relatively young age, 53 is not young, but it's a bit young. It's young because up to now, our grandfathers are still in politics. I was in secondary school with short knicker, and I lined up to welcome General Obasanjo as head of states. And even today, people
And
are
he's still respected
people are still going
member
to
of the society.
yes. Not only respected, but people go and
Consult for me. With
politically
him.
and so on. So
You still have a long way to go. That's what you're trying to tell us.
so at that 53, I now say, okay, maybe I don't have the financial muscle to be a candidate, but I'll make sure I am active in the politics of my state, Adamawa State. And since leaving in office, I've been a very active member of the All Progressives Congress, APC, and yeah.
Now, as an honorable,
Yeah.
what are your top priorities and goals, especially in your constituency?
In my constituency, in my area, is to make sure that we bring in
The best candidates.
the best people to run our affairs. It doesn't have to be me or any other person, but we sit down as a collective and look at the people who are on the ground, or who have shown interest, and decide who should be. Not only in my constituency, not only in my local government, in fact, now in my state. And I dare say that also in Nigeria, because leadership is very key, and it's very, very important that
You get it right.
You get it right. We have not gotten it right, quite all right, but we are there. I think we are there. Even the present government, things are very hard, very tough, and so on. But I think that the foundations for fundamental reforms have already been laid, and perhaps with a bit of patience and tolerance and good tidings and best wishes, I believe
Things will unfold.
Yeah, things will turn around. Things will turn around. Yeah, that's my view.
Now, as a former DG, did that experience prepare you for the role of commissioner for public complaints that you are in now?
Yes.
And in what way?
Very, very much so, because when I was appointed Commissioner of Finance on Economic Planning and Budget, Adamawa is one of those states that had a very large number of ex-servicemen, military ex-servicemen. And every month, they will just line up the sub-treasury and the commissioner offices in the same place. And every month, they will line up to come and collect their monthly pensions, military pensions, and also the non-military pensions. And somehow, there was some kind of dispute which I met on ground. And in fact, the day I was sworn came into office, the permanent secretary said, "Sir, we were just planning to have a small exit gate for the commissioner, so that because they will just come and harass the commissioner about their payment all the time. So we will have an exit gate, so you can just go
run out,
just go quietly." And I said, "I will never do that. I will never run away from anybody. I will face the issues. What are the issues?" They told me the issues. They have increased pensions. They have not been paid. This and that. This and that. This and that. So we sat down with them and said, "Look, I'm your son. I'm your son. If you want to kill me, kill me. I will not run away from you. And I will not go through any other door. I will come through where you are lining up. This is the truth, but give me 3 months. We will sort it out." And within 3 months, we sorted it out. And since then, so that experience of dealing with pensioners, especially pensioners.
People's pain.
Yes, exactly. And also civil servants had different issues with Minister of Finance. So I believe this. So when I became Commissioner of Pubic Complaints Commission, and I saw that a vast number of the issues had to do with military pension, I said, well, we are here.
Something that you have done
again,
before.
and it was very easy to sort out. But more importantly, my guiding principle in life is always, let's try to be fair to everybody. Let's try to appreciate people's efforts and also pains. And therefore, if you can do that, put yourself in their shoes. And if you do that, it helps you to easily solve some of these problems are not intractable. One of the landmark cases I treated was the issue of a land compensation, a site that MTN took in one village, and they claim that they are paid off, and the person has died. If you see the relatives of the person that died, they are so poor and wretched.
Wow.
And I said, this is not acceptable. So we went into the depth of the case and found that there was just a fraud within the MTN system. There was no payment, and therefore we insisted that family should be paid. Well, the man is dead.
But he has dependents.
He had dependents, and it's one of the landmark cases I am very happy to have treated.
Fantastic.
As Public Complaints Commissioner. Yeah.
Now, how do you balance your responsibilities as an honorable with other commitments and interests, and how do you prioritize?
I always try to compartmentalize what I do as a politician and as a Public Complaints Commissioner. I will give you one example. During the last elections, 2023, we were all made observers, and all the commissioners became observers. And I wrote officially, I said, I decline to be an observer because I am a partisan. I'm interested. I have a partisan interest in this election. I have been seen in several meetings and several campaigns. I've even mounted on the rostrum on behalf of my party, the APC. So therefore, it is not fair for me to be
An observer.
I will be a partial observer. And therefore, I stood down in favor of the state director taking over my responsibility. Perhaps I was the only one among the commissioners who did that. I wrote officially to the chief commissioner, and also circulated to all my other commissioners. This is my position. So, because of that, I declined. So my point is that when you are, just to answer your question now, when issues that are a bit partisan are involved, and there is a possibility that you could be accused of partisanship, then you step back and allow the process to go. Luckily, most of the complaints of Public Complaints Commission are not political in nature. They are all social, personal, administrative. And therefore, I had no issues at all throughout my tenure of anything that would bring conflict between me and between my job and I as an active politician. The little bit out of it is that because the Adamawa state government is not controlled by my party, APC, and therefore I had to be a bit circumspect and careful to be sure that we don't have a clash of positions. And many of our issues relate to the state government. So in a very objective way, I try to advise the state government on how to deal with some of those issues without being seen as overtly partisan.
Now, you have again had such a long experience in media.
Yes.
How do you use it to, where the north where you come from is a bit conservative in nature.
Yes.
How do you use your experience as a media person to enlighten and even help the youth to be more forthcoming in affairs of the state?
Luckily, the North, although it is very conservative, the North is also the most active in Nigeria in terms of radio listenership, especially radio listenership. Every Maishai, every herdsman following with his cows, you'll see him carrying a radio set and listening to radio programs. This is the culture we grew up in. Women in the house are doing their domestic chores, the radio is on. So radio is very, very active, and there's a penetration of radio in northern Nigeria. What perhaps we have not done very well is to use that penetration to get our people, uh, actively doing the right things, especially in the area of education.
Exactly.
Especially in the area of education. I think we have focused a bit too much on entertainment and less on education. Perhaps this is one of the failings, but otherwise we had a very very captive audience, active listenership, and there should have been no problem at all. So again, of course, culture is dynamic. Because the culture is dynamic, therefore, we could now use radio to continuously change certain perspectives. The views of our grandfathers in the 50s of Western education is not the same again with
Young people.
people of today. In the maybe in the core conservative Muslim parts of the north, in the 50s, 40s, the idea was that if you go to school, you will not be no longer be a Muslim. Maybe you'll change your faith and so on. I think all this has changed now.
Okay.
So what the governments also need to do is to make sure that education is affordable and available to the common man. Those of us, and again, this is the failing of my generation and the generation before me. We went to school barefooted, yes, but there was good teaching, even in the village. The things I knew in primary 5. I was asked during an interview for employment, a graduate of geography. In fact, first class graduate of geography, and that person could not answer that question.
Wow.
So there was good education. It was those who went to school. I don't think we are paying back properly to this generation. Of course, there are also new contradictions, new nuances, very, very, very serious population explosion, and therefore the quality may have to go down. But I still think that
But are there any efforts on the part of leaders from your side and leaders from all the other core northern states to make sure that as many northern youths are educated?
I think every governor is doing their best. The best might not be enough, or the focus might not be enough. If you budget, let's say, 20 billion naira on education in your state, it would be interesting to see how much of that 20 billion goes to core education, and how much of it goes to wasteful things that are not directly impactful on education. So the out of school children syndrome is a very, very serious and severe in most parts of the north. Adamawa State is not very, very bad, because we're somewhere in the middle or central part of Nigeria, although we're in the northeast. The only thing that happened in Adamawa is that, unfortunately, because we're in the northeast, the effect of Boko Haram, there was a time about almost the entire northern part of Adamawa State was taken over by Boko Haram. And so we had a lot of internally displaced citizens and so on, persons. So that really affected education in the state. And therefore, most people came to the central and southern parts of the state. And there was massive, huge infrastructure gap, also including education. Otherwise, Adamawa is one of the states that I think are doing fairly well educationally in the north.
It would be nice to see more of that, so that that region can be better.
It's a time bomb waiting to explode if nothing is done very, very radically. Very radically.
Yeah.
Not just something being done, but radically.
Okay, now, what message do you have for our listeners who are watching you, who have been inspired by your journey, and who want to make a difference in their communities?
Well, for me, there are so many contradictions and difficulties in our situations in Nigeria. But believe me, trust me, if you are focused, you are hardworking, you are dedicated, you don't cut corners, the sky or the space is your limit. Some people say it's better to aim at the space, not even the sky, because the sky is too close. Many people will tell you, look, Nigeria is beyond redemption. Oh, let's just forget, let's cut corners. And we can do simple things individually. If you reach a traffic light, even if there's no vehicles coming on all sides, stop and wait until it is your turn to move on. These are things we can do individually. And if you are given any assignment, do it with dedication and with dignity and with diligence, and try to achieve excellence, and distinction will follow. So that's my if my small short life has inspired you in any way, there are people who have done greater things. I'm just a small person. I believe we can do much more. But don't believe in all this. Anybody who tells you you have to cut corners, you have to know somebody, you have to do something illegal, out of the way, before you succeed in Nigeria. Unfortunately, this negative trend is catching up a lot with our young people. But please, my dear young people, persevere and try to be as straight as possible.
Any upcoming projects?
Yes. For me, I'm right now 63 years old, so of course one has to begin to slow down a little bit about life. Including, for me, what is important now is to guide and mentor the young people to do the right things. I can only do that beginning with my immediate community, but wherever I see the privilege and opportunity, whether it is in Nigeria or abroad or in Adamawa State or in Lagos or in Umuahia or in Arochukwu or in Iseyin, I love to meet young people and mentor them. And give them some lectures. For me, what I really want to do moving forward is to be organizing small lectures in some universities, polytechnics, on the way to go on certain aspects of life, including broadcasting. I also have been pondering on, if you are listening to radio stations now, there are too many radio stations. The quality is going down very, very drastically. And I was telling a number of colleagues, locally we have started what we call Society of Nigerian Broadcasters. I was telling some colleagues, why don't we come together and go to some of these departments of mass communications and teach people to do the right thing. For me, every time I'm listening to any radio station and they are doing something wrong, I try to call
them to order.
Yes, I call them. I have the telephone number of many FM stations, and I do that. And I think these are the things we should all do, giving it back to the society. Just last week, I was listening to a radio station, and the woman or the lady was reading news very, very perfectly, but she was murdering the names.
Oh, wow.
She was murdering the names. And in our days, if you are reading...
You had to pronounce correctly.
So if I don't know how to pronounce Olarewaju, I will look for a Yoruba person. I will say, please, he will teach me. I will repeat it. He will say, repeat. I will repeat until I say Olarewaju. So that's how it should be. If Tunu Wada is difficult, don't go and just murder and say Tunu Wada or something. So Nigerian names, cities, towns, locations, communities, we should pronounce them correctly so that we can get people to understand the correct way of calling them. So these are things I think
you would like to
I would like to be doing, and then I don't really have any ambition to be for political office holder in terms of contesting for election. But if there's any, I'm called upon to do some part-time kind of job. I'll be happy to do that if it's going to be impactful on
To
the society. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Before you go off,
Yes.
how do you relax?
Yes, I play a lot of I do sports. There's a game called squash. I don't know whether you know squash.
Yes, I know squash.
Squash is a very intensive game. And I play squash almost 7 days a week.
Wow.
I go to mostly National Stadium, Abuja. But if I'm in Yola, also I go to where they have the sports centers, where they have sports courts and play squash. It's a game I love. It's a game that is very competitive, and it encourages me. As you grow older, it's a very intensive game. It becomes a bit more difficult on your knees and sometimes on your waist. But also, I think it's also a way of exercising the knees and the waist. So you slow down a little bit. So otherwise, I also do small sit-ups, press-ups, and so on and so forth. I relax mostly through sports. The other side of it is I do a lot of religious meditation, just alone.
And reflect.
I reflect and also do a lot of supplications to thank God for the good life, thank God for a good health, and then pray that we continue to have good health, and pray for our society, pray for our nation. We need prayers in Nigeria, seriously. There are more negative people than positive people, unfortunately.
But that is all societies of the world.
Yeah. But
That's all societies of the world.
But
it's just that our culture, I think, is different.
Yeah.
We are a bit more conservative, and to now see all of these people now coming up with a lot more negative things, it just shocks you and say, where did this come from?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, the negative people are very few, but because their activities are so impactful on society, we
go a long way.
We go a very, very long way. So
thank you.
Let's do it. Let's do the right thing.
Yeah.
Also.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the show.
And thank you. You've done very well as a professional journalist.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, what else can I say? It's been a great experience to have spoken and to be speaking with the Honorable Federal Commissioner of Adamawa State, Honorable Abubakar Jijiwa. Thank you so much to have come on the show. And you've heard it, that to be straight on the journey to success is the only way to go. No cutting of corners. You will get there at the end of the day. Just remain focused. Spark is still the program. My name is Lola Odubao Mokri. See you next week, and keep on bringing out that spark in you.